In the center of the tension-filled arena, a young man stood tall, exuding an aura of unparalleled strength. Beside him, the protagonist held a short sword tightly. His face was covered in sweat, reflecting a mixed anxiety. However, the two's attention was soon distracted. The quiet steps of someone who had just arrived made them turn their heads in unison. The man wore glasses, his appearance simple yet carrying a strong aura of authority. The black-haired youth looked exasperated, turning his head briefly towards the protagonist, as if hinting at something. "Shut up and listen," said the glasses man in a stern tone. The protagonist obediently shut up. His thoughts were now centered on the man with glasses, who introduced himself calmly. "My name is Robold. I am your magic instructor." For a moment, the atmosphere changed. The tension that filled the air slowly faded away, replaced by a sense of awe. The protagonist's face was now adorned with a small smile. He did not expect his new instructor to be so charismatic and such a great-looking character. However, what interested her the most was the concept of magic taught in this world. In the novel he was writing, magic was neither an innate talent nor an inherited trait. According to the instructor, what was important in magic was attribute. There are basic elements such as fire, wind, earth, and water elements that everyone has. In this world, power is often determined by the magical attributes one possesses. The bear's family was one of the most advantaged, mastering the rare and highly respected attribute of darkness. Unlike the protagonists, the arson family remained an enigma, keeping the secret of their power tightly hidden from public view. Instructor Robold decided to identify the magic attributes of each student in his class. In his hand was a purple orb, a magical artifact capable of reading a person's innate attributes. All students form a single file line to the back, Robold ordered in a firm yet calm tone. The students immediately moved, forming a neat line before their instructor. First to step forward was a young man with bright orange hair. His face looked tense as he brought his hand closer to the orb. As soon as his skin touched the surface of the orb, a light flashed from within. The orb turned a fiery red color, and Robold nodded. "Your attribute is fire," he said briefly. The young man breathed a sigh of relief, then retreated to the line. The process continued. One by one, students came forward, placing their hands on the orb to reveal their magical attributes. Finally, it was the protagonist's turn to come forward. All eyes were on him, some curious, some holding their breath, wondering what magic attributes would emerge from him. With some hesitation, he extended his right hand, touching the surface of the cold orb instantly. The orb began to glow, its light emanating strongly. The orb turned pitch black, like an endless darkness. A mysterious aura was felt flowing out. Instructor Robold stared at the orb in shock, stepping closer to confirm. But the surprise didn't stop there as the black color began to split, forming half shades of gray on its sides. Instructor Robold took a deep breath and explained the orb that showed the unusual color combination. "This black color," he said, "is an attribute of darkness. It is usually only possessed by high-ranking demons." He paused for a moment, staring at the gray part of the orb with a puzzled expression. "But this gray color, it's very rare. I'm not completely sure, but according to existing theories, this is an attribute of chaos. Chaos is an attribute that defies the natural order. It is not subject to ordinary laws and is often a symbol of unbridled power." The protagonist was speechless, hearing such an attribute for the first time. But the protagonist ignored the chaos attribute. He wanted to learn the darkness attribute first. A bright morning enveloped Demon Academy, but Adele's mind was still on the gray color that appeared from his attribute. That curiosity kept bothering him, until he suddenly felt someone's presence behind him. When Adele turned his head, he saw a woman approaching. Instantly, the woman was startled. "Can you see me?" she asked, her face red with embarrassment. The stealth technique she used had failed in front of Adele. Adele just smiled a little, not understanding the reason behind the woman's reaction. "What were you thinking?" she asked, trying to distract herself. Before Adele could answer, the woman drew her own conclusion. "You must have provoked that black-haired youth, right?" she said in an accusatory tone. Adele felt that the woman was cleverly looking for trouble. Feeling innocent, Adele replied, "It was just a joke." However, the woman was not satisfied with her answer. "You're still guilty," she said sternly, "for disturbing his family." And it seemed that the woman was intimately acquainted with the young man with dark hair. The woman looked at Adele seriously and said, "Be careful with that young man. His family is no ordinary family." After giving the warning, she turned and left, leaving Adele to her thoughts, although brief. The information was enough for Adele to connect him with the Samuel family, a name known for its reputation of brutal revenge. However, Adele chose to remain calm. With a small smile, she decided to focus on finishing her last class without looking for any more trouble. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed in the room. Bang! A hand slammed on the desk in front of the class, making all the students flinch. Instructor Ars, the swordsmanship teacher known for being full of energy, had arrived. His eyes radiated a wild fervor that made most of the students look lethargic, some even ducking their heads, trying to avoid attention. Adele, on the other hand, already understood Ars' style. The instructor did not come just to teach. He came to provoke. In a loud voice that almost resembled a shout, Ars spoke. "I will teach you the true art of the sword, even if you die. Make sure you take at least one of your enemy's hands." The lesson began with a brutal sprint. "The foundation of swordsmanship is physical strength," exclaimed Instructor Ars in a loud voice. "Techniques backed by endurance will be 2 to 3 times stronger." They continued to run, circle after circle, until they reached the 30th lap. Breathing began to sound heavy. Some students were already showing signs of fatigue. However, Ars' steps suddenly stopped. "You two, come here," he shouted, pointing at the 2 students in the center of the line. The 2 students turned around with pale faces. "You guys used mana to run, didn't you?" accused Ars in a cold tone. Then the 2 bowed, admitting their mistake. "We apologize, instructor," they said almost simultaneously. "Sorry is not enough," retorted Ars sharply. "You start running from the beginning now." Adele, who witnessed the incident, couldn't help but smile. He was amused at the punishment given to the 2 students. Time passed, and some students began to run out of steam. Those who reached the 50th round were allowed to stop and return to the dormitory. But for those who failed to complete the target, like the 2 students who fell down, they would be given extra lessons. The protagonist is very happy that the deadly lesson is over. The Demon Academy dormitory stood majestically, a building that exuded luxury and power. Adele, who was exhausted from his strenuous training, just wanted to go to his room and rest. However, his steps were halted when a hand tapped him on the shoulder, reflexively. Adele moved to release the grip, then turned around quickly. Behind him stood Rene, his face as expressionless as ever. His cold gaze made Adele suspect that he wanted something, despite not saying a word. And that's the end of chapter 21. If you're enjoying it and want to read the rest, don't forget to leave a comment. Thank you for following this story.